If you can't control your emotions, people will control you. Most people believe relationships end because of bad luck, incompatibility, or simply meeting the wrong people. But psychology tells a very different story. In many cases, the real causes are hidden beneath the surface, inside the emotional patterns, unconscious habits, and behavioral tendencies that quietly shape every interaction we have. If your relationships keep falling apart, the problem may not be what you think it is. The same psychological mechanisms that influence trust, attachment, communication, and emotional connection could be affecting your relationships right now without you even noticing. And unless these patterns are recognized, they tend to repeat themselves again and again, no matter who enters your life. If you stay until the end of this video, you'll discover the hidden psychological reasons why relationships fail, how emotional habits influence the way you connect with others, why certain behaviors slowly destroy trust and intimacy, and what psychology reveals about building stronger and healthier relationships. You'll also learn how anxiety, emotional triggers, attachment patterns, and unconscious expectations can silently shape the outcome of your connections. Because the real issue is not simply who you choose to be with, it is how your mind interprets emotions, conflict, rejection, vulnerability, and human connection. And most people never notice this process happening. Welcome to a space dedicated to understanding the human mind, modern emotions, and human behavior. A place where psychology, emotional intelligence, relationships, personality, and personal development come together to help you better understand yourself and the people around you. Today, we are going to explore one of the most important questions in human psychology. Why do some relationships thrive while others repeatedly fall apart? The answer may reveal something profound about the way your mind works, and it could change the way you see every relationship from this moment forward. Have you ever looked at your relationship and wondered, why does this keep happening to me? Not just once, but over and over again. Different person, different story, different beginning. Yet somehow the ending feels strangely familiar. Maybe the connection starts strong. The conversations flow effortlessly. You feel understood, valued, and hopeful. Then, little by little, something changes. The messages become shorter. The distance grows. Small disagreements start feeling bigger than they should. And before you know it, another relationship is falling apart. What makes this so painful is that most people blame the wrong thing. They blame timing, bad luck, or the other person. But often, the real cause is much deeper. Your mind is constantly carrying emotional patterns created by past experiences, disappointments, fears, and expectations. Without realizing it, those patterns influence how you react, how you communicate, and even who you choose to trust. The strange part is that these behaviors feel normal because they happen automatically. And when something operates on autopilot, it's almost impossible to notice it while it's happening. That's why so many people find themselves trapped in the same cycle, asking the same question after every heartbreak. Why does this keep happening? The answer is far more revealing than most people expect. What most people don't realize is that relationships rarely fall apart because of one big mistake. They slowly weaken because of small psychological patterns happening beneath awareness. The brain is constantly trying to protect you from emotional pain, uncertainty, rejection, and disappointment. On the surface, that sounds helpful. But in real life, this protection system often creates the very problems it is trying to prevent. When someone takes longer to reply, your mind may start searching for hidden meanings. When a partner seems distant for a day, your brain may interpret it as a threat. When a disagreement happens, old emotional memories can quietly step into the present moment and influence how you react. The strange part is that most people believe they are responding to what is happening now, when in reality they are also responding to fears, experiences, and emotional wounds collected years earlier. This invisible process changes conversations, decisions, and reactions without asking for permission. Over time, people become less open, more defensive, or constantly seek reassurance without understanding why. In everyday social situations, this can create tension where none originally existed. A simple misunderstanding becomes a larger conflict. A moment of silence feels like rejection. A harmless comment feels personal. And because these reactions seem completely justified in the moment, the pattern continues unnoticed. What makes this even more surprising is that the issue often has nothing to do with the relationship itself. It begins much earlier, in a place most people never think to look. And this is where the damage becomes visible. The longer these hidden patterns operate in the background, the more they begin to shape your behavior without you realizing it. You stop saying what you truly feel because you fear conflict. You overthink simple conversations. You analyze messages, facial expressions, and small changes in tone as if they contain secret warnings. At first, these reactions seem harmless. In fact, they often feel like caution or self-protection. But over time, they start changing the way other people experience you. Some people become emotionally distant without meaning to. Others become overly accommodating, constantly trying to avoid rejection. Some seek reassurance so often that it creates pressure in the relationship itself. The irony is that many of these behaviors are attempts to preserve connection, yet they slowly weaken it. Trust becomes harder to build because authenticity starts disappearing. Conversations become filtered. Vulnerability feels risky. Presence is replaced by constant mental analysis. In social situations, this creates an invisible signal that others can often feel even when nothing is said out loud. Relationships thrive when people feel safe, understood, and emotionally present. But when fear quietly takes control, every interaction becomes influenced by protection instead of connection. And the more this pattern repeats, the more the brain interprets future relationships through the same lens, strengthening a cycle that becomes harder and harder to recognize from the inside. What makes this cycle so powerful is that most people never question the source of it. They only notice the outcome. Your brain doesn't react to the present only. In many situations, it reacts to emotional memories that were never fully processed, even if you believe you have moved on. This is one of the most overlooked aspects of human behavior. A past betrayal, a painful rejection, years of feeling unheard, or even growing up in an environment where affection felt inconsistent can quietly shape the way you experience relationships today. The mind is designed to recognize patterns. Its job is to predict what might happen next and help you avoid pain. The problem is that it cannot always distinguish between a real threat in the present and an emotional echo from the past. That is why a small disagreement can feel much larger than it really is. That is why some people become anxious when a partner needs space, while others immediately pull away when intimacy begins to grow. The emotional reaction is happening now, but the blueprint was often created much earlier. What makes this pattern so powerful is repetition. Every time a familiar emotional situation appears, the brain follows the same route it has followed before. The response feels natural because it has been practiced for years. And after enough repetitions, people start believing that this is simply who they are. They think they have a trust problem, an attachment problem, or that they always attract the wrong people. But beneath all of that is a deeper process involving emotional memory. One that quietly influences decisions, reactions, and expectations in ways that most people never stop to question. And once you begin to see it, another surprising pattern starts to emerge. The moment you begin observing these patterns instead of automatically reacting to them, something important starts to shift. Not because your problems suddenly disappear, and not because you discover a perfect formula for relationships. The change happens because you stop viewing every emotional reaction as absolute truth. Most people spend years assuming that whatever they feel in a given moment must accurately reflect reality. But emotions are often influenced by memories, expectations, fears, and interpretations that operate beneath awareness. When you recognize that, you create a small but powerful distance between the feeling and the response. A delayed message no longer automatically means rejection. A disagreement no longer automatically means the relationship is failing. A moment of uncertainty no longer has to trigger the same emotional script that has played out dozens of times before. This doesn't make you emotionless. It makes you more aware of how your mind constructs meaning from everyday experiences. And that awareness changes the way you see people, conflicts, and even yourself. Instead of constantly asking, "Why do my relationships keep falling apart?" a different question begins to emerge. What patterns have been influencing my choices all along? For many people, that question becomes the turning point. Because the biggest discoveries in human behavior rarely happen when you change other people. They happen when you finally notice what has been shaping your reactions from the shadows the entire time. Sometimes the most important moments in life are not the arguments, the breakups, or the conversations we remember. Sometimes they are the silent moments that happen afterward. The moments when everything becomes quiet, and there is nothing left to blame, explain, or chase. Just you and your thoughts. What makes relationships so complicated is that they are never only about two people. They are also about memories, fears, expectations, hopes, and emotional stories that were written long before the relationship even began. And because those stories are invisible, most people spend years focusing on what happened around them while rarely noticing what was happening within them. Maybe that is why two people can experience the same event and walk away with completely different emotional realities. One sees rejection, another sees distance, another sees freedom. The event is the same, but the meaning is different. And perhaps the most fascinating part of human behavior is that the mind is always creating meaning, even when we are not aware of it. It fills gaps. It builds explanations, connects emotions to stories. Sometimes those stories bring people closer together. Sometimes they quietly pull them apart. So when you look back at the relationships that changed your life, the question may not be whether they succeeded or failed. The deeper question is this: what were they trying to show you about yourself that you could not see at the time? Because long after certain people leave our lives, that question often remains. And sometimes, the answer changes everything. If you watched until the end, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep breakdown on human behavior and psychology. And I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below in English and tell me what part hit you the most, or what you realized about your own patterns while watching this. Before you leave, there's another video on the screen right now and a full playlist waiting for you with more content about relationships, emotional patterns, and the psychology behind human behavior. Keep watching because what you understand next might connect even deeper dots in your mind.